amazing Women Speak podcast, inspiring and motivating every Black woman to own, honor, and execute her amazing individually and collectively as it was established at birth.
So welcome. Good evening, and thank you guys for tuning in. I am Crystal Gunn, financial strategist for women, founder of the Amazing Women Network, and host of Amazing Women Speak, a celebration of Black women by Black women, where we strive to bring info to uplift, inspire, and motivate every Black woman to own, honor, and execute her amazing as it was established at birth. So let's get to know who is here today. And to do that, I'm going to start with and give way to my BFF and co-host, Miss Michele Harper.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. What an exciting opportunity to have this conversation tonight. I'm really looking forward to hearing from some dynamic women and then hearing from you live on Facebook about the conversation that we're about to dive into. My name is Michele Harper. I am the Director of Diversity for Evident Change. I own my amazing every day that I wake up because I have a responsibility not only to every other Black woman, but more specifically to my girls, Jasmine and Kimberly. What an honor to be in this space. What an honor to get to co-host this with my BFF, where we're going to dive into some really deep conversation about the bullshit bar. I'm really excited to be able to introduce to you. First, I would like to invite into this space, Leah. Come on in, Leah.
Hello, my name is Leah Sylver. I'm a licensed therapist, have been licensed since 2019 in Michigan. And I'm so excited to be a part of this conversation. And thank you again for having me.
Thank you, Leah. And we are also really excited and fortunate to have with us this evening, Cydney Hill. Come on in, Cydney.
Hello, everyone. How are you? My name is Cydney, and I am currently serving as the Detroit market leader for Ellis & Whitmore. We are a financial institution working to provide small businesses with access to capital. And outside of that role too, I'm also the owner of a learning and development firm. So everything inside of the training and development space, I work to help small businesses really improve their training and development for their employees. Graduated from University of Michigan in 19. I'm getting my master's, thank the Lord, May 9th in learning technology and design. So I'm really excited to be here. Thank you again for having me. And again, excited to dive into the conversation.
Thank you.
Fantastic. So before we jump off and I get to talk about what the topic is, I do have to say who's sponsoring this show, and it is the Amazing Women Network, which was created to unite and empower Black women globally, focusing on our core pillars of reclaiming our personal power, mind, body, and spirit, reclaiming our financial power, and increasing our social involvement. And we are calling all Black women to join our Black Women Owning Our Amazing movement. So follow us on Instagram at the AW Network, and you can also text AWOOA to 313-251-4549. So let's talk about the topic for today, that bullshit bar. So we've all heard the term raise the bar, right? And we usually look at the bar as something to aspire to reach. And society has created this crazy bar for Black women, right? And so all of society has created this bar for Black women. And you must have straight hair. You got to look a certain kind of way. You have to, you can't be too Black in corporate America. You got to buy this, you got to wear that, you got to be not too dark. You have to be 3 times as better as your non-Black counterpart. And I coined this term as the bullshit bar. And it's unattainable, it's unrealistic, it's ever moving, spirit killing, depression causing, self-hate evoking bullshit bar. And if we look at some definitions of the word bar, we have a standard, right? Something that obstructs or prevents passage, to confine or shut in, to keep out, exclude, to prevent, or forbid. It's all bullshit. right? So it's time for Black women to acknowledge the bar, dismiss it, and be open to another standard. And that standard is Black women owning our amazing. So Michele, let's get the conversation going so we can unpack the bullshit.
Absolutely. And so before we get there, we just have to give a little bit of context of how we got here today.
Yes.
It might have been, it'd be a year ago in August, and Crystal and I were in the car having a conversation about the importance of us paying attention to what's happening to Black women, right? And she kept talking about, it's that bullshit bar, right? And I was like, because it was never intended for us.
No.
It was never intended. So no matter how many ways we attempt to show up, we're never going to obtain. It's like she lifted up, it will just keep moving because it was never designed for us. And yet we've been socialized, right? To keep chasing it. And so I said, right, like at some point, here's the conversation. We need to gather some women together and begin to unpack why we feel this need, right? Like, why do we keep living into our socialization when we have many examples of the reasons why it will never obtain it, right? Like there constantly, we get examples in how we get treated. Constantly, we get one more example of why we will never get it. This is the conversation. It's like the bullshit bar's gotta happen. It's gotta happen. And one thing you never, ever, ever say in front of my BFF, this is what we need to do, because you guarantee it's gonna, right? And so this is a platform for that. So let's have this conversation. So when we think about the ways we've been socialized, I really want to invite Cydney and Leah to start thinking about and share with us, what was the cost, right? Like, I'm not even going to talk about for a seat at the table. That's a podcast for another day, because we could unpack that one. But what was the cost to just get in the room? What have you given up? What have you sacrificed? What have you sold yourself out on just to get in the room? What was that for you? What was that thing for you? What did it cost you?
I guess I can take it. I guess I can start it. For me, I think it was just going to Michigan and then coming out and then being thrown into the professional space, right? So at Michigan, we have this very high BS bar of the Michigan difference, the leaders and the best, right? So you have overachievers all throughout the world in one specific place, right? So, I went to the Detroit Public Schools, graduated from the Detroit Charter. So my level of overachievement was extremely high because we didn't have that many resources available, right? Then we move over to Michigan, where that immediately changes, right? I'm immediately thrown in at the bottom, and then all of these other people at the top. So I'm overcompensating now, right? Because the leaders and best and the Michigan difference is telling you, you need to be in this club, you need to graduate with this job. You have to do all of these different things to maintain that Michigan standard. And I completely hated it, right? So I am also the type of person that likes to buck the system at any way, shape, form, whatever that is. I do not like conformity. I don't like it. I don't like going the same way as other people, because I feel like I want to do what I want to do, and that's what I'm going to do at the end of the day. So for me, when I finally did graduate, I graduated in 19. It was a big shift, and it was really hard for me because everybody, again, at Michigan, you graduate, you get your Michigan degree. We already know you're coming out making at least $100,000, right? That was not the case for me. I was not making that. So I was like, oh, so immediately while you're graduating, like, okay, I got to get this job. I got to be around this certain types of people. And you're constantly comparing yourself, right? I'm out of that mentality now, but I was constantly comparing myself, like, oh, he graduated, he's about to make this, they're making this. Everybody's posting it. So it's always in your face, right? So for me, that's where it really started. And coming out of that and having to unlearn it, it was really hard. So when I graduated, I ended up landing a job after many, many months of denials, right? Because I switched my major and all of these different things. But when I graduated, I did not want to work in a corporate space. And I knew that. But everybody else that was graduating was going corporate. So I felt like if they're doing it, then I have to do it too. And for me, I really had to give up my own I guess, my own work view, because I don't want to work in a space where I'm not making an impact. Like whatever I do in life, I want to make sure that I'm making or having some type of impact in life, that I know that if I do X, Y, and Z, this person is going to be impacted in this way. So working in this corporate space, I did not get that. And I did not like that job at all because I was not making any impact. I was trying to reach some company's bottom line, and that wasn't fulfilling for me. So I think after coming out of that space, I know now moving forward that I'm never going to sacrifice, my own morals and work-life view of having an impact. And it has been, hard as other people have been progressing through the corporate ladder, which is really awesome. But for me, I just know that I can't be in a corporate space at all. So that's kind of my journey.
So I have Michelle, you're on mute. But I have a question, Cydney. So you mentioned that people are graduating and they know they're going to make this $100,000 a year, but you did not do that. Like, what did that do to you mentally, emotionally? How did you not making that $100,000? How did you deal with it, and how did it impact you?
I would say it was the first couple months. It was kind of like, okay, like, am I really gonna stay here? Like, what do I have to do? Because at first I was like, I'm not making $100,000, but I can make it up there. So now I was like, well, let me talk to my manager and people all around me to figure out, how can I start making that right? So I just developed more and more anxiety at work, trying to figure out all the different tasks, that I have to do to become like a product manager or whatever. But I would say it was just an emotional toll for me, because I didn't have to, like, what am I doing this for? I don't even like this job. So why am I trying to go up this ladder if I'm not even trying to work here for real? So it was really just the emotional impact for me. And then again, too, just stop paying it, just focus on yourself and just work on you, and don't worry about what anybody else is doing. You can't be so caught up in what this person is doing, what that person is doing. But it's so easy with social media, and I'm not hating on anybody who's making it, like, go ahead. But that's just not my cup. I get.
So, Crystal, imagine where we would be had we gotten to this realization at their age, right?
Oh my God.
Which is so critical to have young voices in this conversation, because we need to be shaping the conversation for the generations to come. For too long, chase the bullshit bar, right? I remember early in my career, trying to get into supervision, needing to do all of the things, and had been wearing my hair naturally. And I finally got an opportunity after applying and applying, right? So that's the other thing. It's not just one and done for us. We have to keep showing up. And I remember finally getting an interview, and I talked to another person of color, a Black man, who encouraged me to perm my hair to show up in that space to interview for the. And I did it. And I didn't get the job.
Wow.
And I kept chasing the bar, right? So that realization, it took me a really long time. So I get excited to hear a story like yours, Cydney. Leah, come on in and tell us yours.
Yeah,
Because hearing from the young voices are critical.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on both what Cydney and Mrs. Harper said. For me, it was comparison and my confidence that I had to sacrifice. And this started for me at a younger age. So when I was in elementary school, there were Black people all around me, Black teachers, and I felt equal. I felt like, I was achieving, I felt empowered in this space. But then when I went to middle school, in high school, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. And so my parents moved us to the suburbs, and we went to like one of the #1 high schools in Ohio. And it was predominantly white. And so in that moment, going to middle school and high school, I realized that most people don't look like me. And then that's when comparison kicked in. And I was like, ooh, am I good enough? Right? Like, can I do the things that they're doing? Do I have to shape my being to look like theirs so that I could be accepted? And I feel like that just carried with me, even through, like, I work in private practice now. And I am the only Black person, and I still battle with these internal thoughts of self-doubt and my confidence. Like, am I good enough to be in this space, even though I don't look like majority of people in this space? And so for me, that's been something that I've sacrificed, and I refuse not to. Like, I wear my hair natural. I speak how I speak, right? And over the years, I've had to shed that, let go of, and detach myself from this comparison. Comparison is the thief of joy. It's always going to make you feel like you're less than, right? And everybody else is your subordinate. So um, over time, through self-talk, reassurance, right, having people around me that are going to empower me, who are going to lift me up, definitely help with my self-esteem, and just knowing I could be in these spaces too and do just as good, if not better, than the people in this space. So not only did I give up those things, confidence, comparison was another one, but I was also chasing the wrong things. I was chasing approval, I was chasing acceptance from these people that, you know, didn't look like me. So I thought, like, if I got approval from them, then I was accepted. I could be in this space that not only did I have a seat at the table, but I could enter the room. And I quickly found out that that was not the case, and that I am enough, you know, no matter what. And so that's something that I feel like I will never give up again. And I empower other women, especially Black women, to not sacrifice those things in their spaces as well.
You said a very interesting thing that I think we need to pull out and touch on. Although you were in the room, you were in the space with these people who didn't look like you still question whether or not you were good enough and or accepted by them. That's rough. That's
And it started young, right? Because in middle school, high school, I was the last one getting picked, right? Because of the color of my skin, or I wasn't getting picked at all. I wasn't invited to the birthday parties, or, you know, like different things like that. So now it's ingrained in me. Like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I be a part? Right? Like, am I not good enough? And so those thoughts started to form and started to creep in at a young age, and, you know, carried with me up until more recently, that I became more aware of those thoughts.
So where did the awareness come from? Cydney, I invite you to come on into this part of the conversation, right? Because like I said, when I think about it, think about my journey, think about Crystal's journey, right? Like her and I, we've been at this thing together a really long time. And it took us some time, right? So what was the realization for you? How do you get there, right? In your 20s, early 30s, when we were just struggling still, chasing the bullshit, wasn't even aware, right? Like that it wasn't meant for me. Like if I just kept pushing, if I just kept trying, that eventually they're going to reward me. No,
I think, and I don't think it's something that you arrive at. Like, I think it's something that you intentionally have to work through and work on constantly. And of course, it's dependent upon the space that you're in. Other, you know, certain spaces you may feel more confident and comfortable. But I think it's something that you continuously have to work on, for sure. But I'm a therapist, so this is what I study. I went to school for this. I got my master's in this. I talk to my clients about this on a daily basis. So I was aware through like studying, right, and like understanding my mind, understanding my thoughts, understanding that my thoughts lead to my emotions, how I feel, and then that leads to my behavior, how I respond in situations, and then the outcome of the situation. So once I became aware of that, I was able to kind of shift my thoughts, or my feelings or my behavior in those spaces. And then, of course, surrounding myself around people who are going to encourage and uplift as well. But it definitely took some time.
Yeah. I would say for me, it's just been about the past 2 years, like during the pandemic, where I realized like, yeah, we can't keep on living to whatever standard this is, because I think the pandemic, and I know it's been a rough time for like everybody, but for me, I think it was the self-reflection of figuring out exactly what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. Because I know, like for me, one goal that I set is I want a team of Black women behind me, like on this journey of like entrepreneurship, right? I don't want to be in a space where I'm not going to be comfortable. I want to create an environment and a working environment where, you know, we can talk about hair and what we did on the weekend, and then we can also get to business in the next, you know, sentence. And that's the environment that I want to create. So I think just during the pandemic, just having that self-reflection and then leaving my last corporate space, I just knew that I didn't want that same, I didn't want to be anxious like as I was doing work. I didn't want to feel like what I was doing was not good enough, because that's how they made me feel ultimately. Like whatever I did, it was always, did you do this? Did you make sure you did? Did you make sure you do that? And it was just too much. So I just knew from that experience that I just wanted a completely different work lifestyle. I don't ever want to feel like I felt like that again. Like I was never good enough, because I know I put up good work. I work very hard, okay? And it's all perfectionist and hard. That's not good either, but I really want to make sure that whatever I do, you know, I put up good work, whatever I do is going to be impactful. So it's just been the last 2 years has been through like the self-development.
So Leah, I have a question. How did all of that impact you showing up in other spaces outside of your job, like in personal spaces with friendships and family, that needing that or thinking that you needed that acceptance and approval? How did that impact those other relationships and how you showed up?
Oh yeah, it definitely showed up in every aspect of my life. I had many insecurities, just not thinking that I was good enough in most spaces, or like I didn't look good enough, I wasn't smart enough, right? So it definitely like put like a barrier between me and my relationships. Well, I tried not to, because I was aware, right? Like I was aware of this happening, so I would internalize a lot of it, and try to save face for everyone else. So everyone else probably didn't see that I was like, you know, crying inside or like having all these questions, but internally it was definitely a battle for me, in every single space. But I don't think that my friends, like, it didn't hinder my relationships, because my friends, I don't think they were fully aware, because I tried to hide it as much as possible.
So there's a big piece, having to hide it, right? So not only do we have to fight this battle to know that we're good enough and not look for in a space that wasn't even it wasn't even designed for
At
us.
all. At all, right? Like, let's keep bringing that full circle.
And so then to do that and then have to suffer and hide and things like that lead to depression, lead to substance abuse, lead to bad relationships, because you know you question your self-worth. You too were really able to see it early enough, and I commend you for that, but to see it early enough to escape a lot of that. But there's so many women out there your age and Michele and my age still, that's going through that thing every single day.
And I don't think, for me personally, it's not something that I've escaped. It's just something that I feel like it's better managed, a little bit better than it was when I was like in high school, college, getting my master's. Like, I feel as a person, I'm more confident in knowing who I am and accepting of myself. So when I get into spaces, I still may feel or have these thoughts, right? Like, am I good enough? But I can more so manage that by reassurance. Like, no, I am good enough, right? And like, these are the reasons why I am.
Yeah, you really have to pay attention to that, right? Like, you have to be intentional. And that self-reflection piece is so important, because so many of us fall into that need to do that code switching, right? Just to be in the spaces. I'm going to say, right, like, it's important to try on who it is you want to show up as. Just make sure that you're being authentic to you, right? And not to the man, right? So Oh, you can't wear that to work. Where are you going with a red lip on? Wherever the hell I want to, right? Right. So it's whatever it is. So if I decide I do want to straighten my hair, it's because it's my choice, right? And so we're not even suggesting that getting the bag, chasing the bag, right, is the wrong thing to be doing. Did I say that wrong? I know my girls are saying, stop, mom, with the language, right? Okay, stop with the language. Right? But the idea that you want to pursue and you want to have things, I'm talking about the reflection, right? What's the why behind that? Are you trying to achieve somebody else's standard? Again, it's the bullshit. You're not going to get it, right? What are you doing to create generational wealth? This is all Crystal's, right, domain, talking about that. But what's the why behind it? That's the thing that I want us to always be challenging ourselves to be thinking about. What's the why? Go get it, be it, do it, try it on. Just be authentic to those reasons and thinking about what does that mean to the person who's watching me that looks like me? And how am I role modeling and providing space for them to give themselves permission to do it as well? And I'd like to think that at some point, right, like our generation is trying to be more clear about that, to the reason why that you all are coming into that a little sooner than we did.
And I wonder, so we have these thoughts of, are we good enough when we're sitting in this space? But do they even think about us?
No.
Real quick,
Right.
I don't care. They just don't. It's like we have these thoughts, especially as Black women, that again, we are at the bottom, I think, on wealth, I think, if we break it all down. But our worth ethic blows everybody out of the water. And everybody knows that, right? And we also have the highest educational attainment and achievement out of all groups, right? But we're still questioning ourselves. Why? Because there's these bars, these arbitrary, completely arbitrary, because who made them? Can we point out exactly who made these? Somebody, right? We're chasing these random bars that somebody literally, I want to say like 50 or 60 years ago said it was okay. But it's like we never take the time to set our own goals and our own standards and our own bars for ourselves. And I think that's what the pandemic really gave me. I really had the time to sit down and figure out, okay, this is what I want to do. This is how I'm going to do it. And this is who I'm going to connect to do with it. And I think because we're always on the go and we're always on the move, we don't have the time to really sit back and reflect, you know, what it is that we actually want to do. Because sometimes we're the breadwinner. Sometimes, you know, we're juggling 2 or 3 different jobs, but we never give ourselves the space or the time to have that self-reflection piece. And it's honestly a privilege. Like being in a pandemic and saying that I went through a whole self-reflection, whatever journey, is honestly a privilege to have that much time to be able to go on it. And a lot of women don't. So I think that's why we're always thinking of these things, because we're always on the move thinking of our next goal, our next, I guess, bullshit bar, you know? So it's saying, because we're doing everything, we're like in every space, right? But we still
every space.
It's like, why am I not good enough? Like, girl, you got 3 degrees, you're fine, you know what you're doing, like you have it all, you're the full package, you have it.
So how much of that
still socialized to question, right? Like we've been socialized to question, right? And I get really frustrated. So I'm in this space now where in all the places where I get to push back, right? And I do it. Where there's low cost, no cost, high cost, I'm going to do it, right?
Just because,
right?
Yeah.
Because you want to measure me by a standard that has nothing to do with who I am as an individual or my lived experience, right? So my latest push is I don't share my degrees with people. They want it behind my title. No, thank you. Because it sends a couple messages. It says to women who don't have degrees that they can't get in the room without them, right? So we have to keep 1. 2, it says the only reason you're willing to let me in is because of the things behind my names and certifications I've got. No, you don't get it. So if you want me in the room, invite me in, because I guarantee you there is a dominant culture group out there that gets in the room and doesn't have to say a thing. right?
True.
So
True.
either you're going to trust the woman that I am in the spaces you've heard my voice and invite me in the room, or you don't get me. And if you don't get me, you're lost, right? You don't get my degrees right now. That's my latest thing right now. You don't get it. You don't get it. I don't care, right? Like whatever you think I am not because you don't see initials behind my name. And right, like you said, we're the biggest collector of degrees. So not like we're out here without them, but you don't get me to define by them. And you're not going to get me to allow the woman who doesn't have one for whatever reason, right? Because it's not everybody's thing, that she's not worthy to be in the room or to be at the table, right? And so there's a piece of that Leah and I were having a conversation about earlier that I want her to lift up, right? Because despite my degrees, there's something else that defined that I deserve a seat at the table. What was that, Leah? What was that?
Put me on the spot now. I don't remember.
Who says beyond man?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So thank you for. So God said we all have a seat at the table, right? And so, who is average Joe Blow to tell me that I'm not deserving of a seat at the table or in that space, right? Like, how can man be against me if God already said that?
I agree.
Right? Like, so that also is a reminder, right? Like when we're ready to go into these spaces or get interviews or whatever it is, like just remembering like you deserve to be here just as much as everyone else, if not more.
Yeah. So because I am who I am, I do have to, I have to say this, because we talked about those degrees that we're chasing, and we do collect degrees. It's so funny. I remember when my brother got his master's degree, my father had his master's degree, and then my brother had his, and I was like, oh, we got two in the family. I'm good. I don't have to worry about doing that, right? But we chase these degrees, and then we have the most student loan debt. So even if we came out and we were making the $100,000+ a year, you know, those 6-figure incomes, we still didn't have to pay off all of this debt. So did we really rise to any, you know what I mean? Where did it really get us? And a few years ago, I was in a meeting, and Tony Stovall, Hot Sam's, shout out to Hot Sam's in Detroit, said something in the meeting that just was an eye opener. He said a lot of times these folks that don't look like us are sitting at the table, and he said they're not intentionally saying we want to keep them out. They're not even thinking about us. That's exactly what I did.
And I feel like
they're not even thinking about us.
And just to add on to that, I feel like when they are, they're intrigued.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's us, right? Like because of the system, because of these beliefs, because of these notions and messages that have been passed down.
Which definitely led me to that next question.
Right, but that hurt, right? Like if you rest in that a moment, like that will punch you in the face, right? Yeah. We're out here chasing their standards and they're not even thinking about us. Like if you don't let that one sit with you for a moment.
Right. And so how much of the bullshit bar do we create for ourselves?
Oh, here's another one that my kids will cringe. Big facts, right?
That's right.
Big facts, right? How many are we creating? Yes.
But I think though, at a time in history, they did not want us to be apart, right? And
for sure.
It's been passed down like generationally, like it's this internalized thing, right? And now for us, or even younger, I know like when I was in middle school, high school, things like that, like it was like, am I good enough? Like that's where it started. But it was, the basis were because they did not think that we were equal or that we should be in the same spaces as them. Right. So it comes from.
Oh, we're clear. They've been threatened by us, right? Which is the reason why it's been created the way that it's created, right? The reason why systems were created the way to keep us out, because they've always been threatened by us. But the idea that since that moment we've been chasing it and they've gone on and not even thinking, like, Crystal, that hit hard, right? Like, I'm gonna have to sit with that one for a minute.
Right? It was like, they're not even thinking about y'all most of the time. I'm like,
it's I don't even know what to say behind and I know, because I know they're not thinking of us, right? So why am I getting all anxious, developing all of these different emotions behind somebody who's not even thinking about me, right? That's why I said they're arbitrary. They're literally these arbitrary goals made by people who don't look like you, who have no interest in your self-worth or your self-development, and you're chasing this arbitrary goal. Like, I have to be making this amount of money by X, Y, and Z. I have to be a director of a corporation by X amount of years. Like, who told you to do that? Who told you to do that? Tell me who that person is right now. Nobody's telling you to do that. So why are you getting up an arm? That's why I refuse. That's why I refuse to go back into the corporate space and let anybody tell me that I have to be doing X, Y, Z by a certain age. Just point me to the person who said that. You cannot tell me who said that. So I'm not even about to listen to anything. Everything is arbitrary. And that's all I have to say behind it.
And you know what I think too is like the media. Like what you see, social media, you know, you see, of course, everyone's highlight reels. You see people, you know, achieving goals at certain ages, and you're at that age, you're like, dang, I don't have that. Or you look at TV where everyone is like achieving and doing all these things, or to be at a certain caliber of person, you have to have X, Y, and Z, right? Like, I think it all is just like, these things are taught to us even subconsciously.
Yeah, they definitely are. And that's kind of my whole social media thing that I dislike too, especially on the age of like, I guess like entrepreneurship and self-entrepreneurship that is constantly feeding us like, I was a millionaire by X, like 21, 22. It's like, okay, well, I'm 22. Why am I not a millionaire? What's the problem? What am I doing wrong? And I love social media, you know, for the reach, you know, the way that we're able to connect, like, you know, like we're on this podcast today, but the way that it is so ingrained, and I could go into a whole nother spiel about technology, I ain't gonna do that, but the way that it's ingrained, you know, to be a part of our everyday life, I think it does kind of does have some negative emotional factors going on there that kind of also play into the bullshit bar, like that we know it today. It's kind of like a new age BS bar, if you kind of want to, I don't even know what to call it, but it's just like certain social media aspects definitely playing through it as well.
Yes, I agree with you, Cydney, because I see, even on like TikTok, I see like 22, 23-year-olds, they're making like 200, 300K, or they're like millionaires, or they are investments, or they're able to retire at like 35. And I'm like, ooh, I'm 30, 31 actually. And I'm not making, you know, what they're making. And so like, what's wrong with me? You know, or like, did I choose the wrong field? Or, you know, so then it's less about passion. It's more about like, okay, everyone else is chasing the money, right? Or everyone's deemed success as this, as one thing. So let me step out of what my morals and values and what I find important is, and then let me just chase this, because it seems like it's something that's making everyone happy, and this is what success means.
Right.
And that's that bar.
And then and then some of those people, not all of them, but some of them are extremely unhappy.
Very unhappy.
Right? And I hate that I'm even about to say what I'm about to say. I was on social media, and I think it was, what's the chick's name? Not Nicki Minaj, the other one from New York. What's her name? Who?
Cardi.
Her. Do you? Okay. And she was in an interview, and she was talking about that very thing, right? And how she has all of the money. However, it doesn't equate to happiness for her all of the time. And so it's like, you really have to, part of that, I believe, that self-discovery is figuring out what's important to you and what matters to you. So you're not selling your soul in order to go out there and do and get the my daughter's about to pass out, and get the bag, as they say, right? How do you, right? But so, and then do we have a duty, because now, you know, you all are several years younger than Michele and I, but what's the duty? Because those that are behind us, that are coming up behind us are watching and saying, so when we start talking about those generational curses, I think these are the type of generational curses that we really need to address, because if your child, and neither of you have children, but if the younger generation is looking at you guys and then at us and saying, oh, I have to work here, and they see the stress and they see all of that goes into it, what do? Do they then follow suit and say, that's what I have to do? And then they wind up being in that same piece? Or a lot of what I'm seeing now is they're like, I don't want that. Like, I absolutely don't want that. So I have to do this thing a different way, which is why some of these 22-year-olds are making, $1 million a year, because they're like, well, let me use these tools and tech in this technology to do something different, because I don't want to do what my parents did.
Yeah, I think it kind of all goes back to kind of making sure whatever you're doing has some type of impact. If it's a small impact, if it's a big impact, I feel like that's where you kind of stay away from, I'm unhappy, right? Because you're working, you kind of mentioned with Cardi, she has like all the money, and you see on Instagram, people are like, yeah, they're only highlighting the highlights of their life, essentially. Like, I made some X amount of dollars at a certain age. But if you are impactful with the work what you're doing, if you're actually trying to change somebody else's life or provide them with a small snippet of knowledge, that they can use and figure out whatever they want to do with it, I feel like that will kind of alleviate, well, I'm unhappy. That's why I kind of strive to make sure whatever I do has like some type of impact, some type of outcome, because I don't want to get to the space where, and two, just to go back a little bit further, I want to make sure that whatever I'm doing, I can build up the people behind me, so I don't got to be unhappy at the top. I want my friends to come with me. I want my family to come with me, right? I don't want to be at the top by myself, because that's not fun. Like, I got to make sure that everybody around me is also successful. Like, the standards that I'm creating for myself are attainable just for me. I'm not trying to equate or create any type of bars for anybody else, but this is what I'm striving towards, right? So I'm creating my own lane, defining what that is for me, and I'm encouraging everybody around me to do the same thing as well. Don't look at, this person who got married at this age, or this person, who's got so much money. Don't look at that person and define that for yourself. Create your own and figure out what you want to do. If you want to become an entrepreneur at whatever age, go ahead and be an entrepreneur. If you want to climb the corporate ladder, that is up to you, but make sure whatever you're doing, you're making some impact. And I think a lot of times too, that's why people, choose to like volunteer. They pick up like additional hobbies, because you have to have something outside of work to keep you sane. You can't be work all the time. You can't. You just can't do it. I'm so sorry.
So Crystal, I wonder if there's anything sitting inside of Facebook that we need to lift up and call into. And if I'm going to put this in here now, because if we don't do anything else after this conversation, it is important that every person who is struggling with that comparison piece, pick up Jonathan McReynolds, Comparison Kills. Let that song sit in your spirit as a way of inviting you to think about all of the ways in which we compare, that we wear shoes that don't fit, right? Because comparison kills, literally is costing you your life. If you're struggling, I invite you, pull it up, listen to it, and let those lyrics sit with you as a way of thinking about who you are and the value you bring, right? Like, live a life so rich that you're the comparison, not that you're trying to compare yourself to others. Let that song sit. So I want to get that in. I didn't want to drop that before we run out of time. So I wonder, is there anything in Facebook?
Absolutely. So thank you, Rosemary and Judy, for chiming in. Judy says, fundamentally, it comes down to how we define our self-worth. And I think that's huge.
Critical.
Rosemary was all for the team of women working together. Velma loved the fact where you said, or you don't get me. I think that was probably one of the most profound things. It's like, you don't get me. A degree doesn't define who we are in our totality. We are so much more. Oh, and definitely bring someone with you along the journey to success. I think that's critical when we talk about what's happening in the world today. We have to take the hand of somebody else that looks like us.
So Judy lifted up something really important. She said, right, like you got to do the work. You got to know who you are. So Leah, Cydney, what are you doing to do the work? How are you staying intentional? How are you paying attention to those things that keep you from continuing to chase the bullshit bar? Like what does that look like for you?
I think for me, it's twofold. So I encourage myself. I speak life and positivity to myself, and that's through affirmations, that's through reassurance, and this is like daily, hourly, all day, every day. I make sure that I surround myself by people who are going to empower me, uplift me, because that enhances self-esteem when you're around others who are going to encourage. I also focus on like self-care, like doing things outside of work that are going to empower me, make me feel good, make me feel happy. But also I like to encourage others and be a light to other people as well. And so that they can see that whatever that it is that they find important and who they are is okay. And so I really try to embody that too, like, and that's where like the affirmations and things come in, because I do want to embody that. And so I feel like fake it till you become it. So I do all these things daily, and then that extra piece of extending that grace and reassurance to others.
Yeah, mine is kind of, I guess like all over the place. I don't know if it's like I don't know if it's like a set thing. More so, I would say that because I'm like a go with the flow type person, right? So I don't have anything like spelled out for real. Like I have like my goals for like this year of like, you know, what all I want to accomplish. But I would say just being prayerful has really helped me be more intentional in what I'm doing. So I've seen like the Lord work over the past couple months and the opportunities that I was able to, like it aligns with, you know, my goals of having impact, right? So he's unlocking all of these opportunities and all of these just networks of people that I'm able to connect with because I've been so prayerful and so faithful. So I think that has really kind of shaped my intentionality behind projects, and it's just brought more projects in that align with exactly what I'm trying to do. So I think that's what my biggest thing, because I said that I'm an entrepreneur, right? But it's like all of the opportunities that are coming, I don't know where they came from. I have no idea where they came from. Listen, I'm very blessed to have them, right? I'm very grateful for them, and I know that as I'm moving forward in this entrepreneurship journey and in this faith walk, that it's just going to continuously be intentional wherever I'm going.
So one of the things that I had to do, and it was the thing, and it wasn't that long ago, right? In having that time with God one morning, and just going through what was going on, right? And this was shortly after my dad died, he passed in 2017. And like I could hear my father saying, okay, well, I'm not here anymore. So you're all out of excuses, right? You're not coming to sit with me. You're not coming to, you know, help your mom. You're all out of excuses. What are you going to do now? Where are you going? And I had to dig into that and say, okay, so why am I still standing here? And my faith, if you know me, you know my faith in God is like unshakable, right? And I realized that it wasn't my lack of faith in God, it was the lack of faith that I had in myself. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, but then I had to take a step back and I said, and you'll hear me say all the time, this that I do is my assignment and it came from God. So if God gave me all of these gifts and talents that I have, and if God entrusted in me this assignment, how dare I not think that I'm good enough? So I had to borrow my faith in God for his faith in me, right? In order to say, okay, it's time to stop playing. Let's get this thing going. And even, and I don't know if you ever, and Leah, I think you said it earlier. I don't know if you ever just go and say, okay, I got it. And you're just all good every single time. You're gonna question you. You're gonna have some self-doubt about something. And in every one of those moments, I have to go back and I have to say, God gave this to me though. And the only way it doesn't happen is if I don't do it. So Cydney, when you talk about, I don't know where all these things are coming from, it's God. And as you look at what we said, what the Amazing Woman Network is and what the merchandise says, it's you are amazing. It was established at birth. It doesn't come with your titles. It doesn't come with, the amount of money in your account or the amount of money that you really impact. It was established at birth. And when you go back and remember that, because we forget, but when you go back and you remember that, I think that's where that breakthrough really, that's where it came in for me.
And so I promise you, when I remember when established at birth, came into the Amazing Woman Network. I promise you, right? And that remembrance hit me so hard. I was like, I got a lot of making up to do.
Yeah.
Right? And foot on the gas since then, unapologetically, right? Like I'm okay in all the spaces you think that I don't belong in, because established at birth.
At birth.
I'm 55, right? And I was well into my 30s before I realized, right? Like all of the places that I go, you just got greatness because I was in the room.
Come on, say it again.
It took a long time, right? It was established at birth, right? Standing on the shoulders of my ancestors, needing to honor every space that I walk into, being able to call on my mother, being able to call on my father, and recognize established at birth. Anything else, right, says that I don't honor their journey and I don't honor that I'm a child of God. Established at birth. If there's an affirmation to put on your mirror, like that's the one. And every that you think about, you gave one back, foot on the gas. Established at birth. God is not playing with us about this thing, right? When you think about, you've already been given a seat at the table. Why in the world, right, would you allow man to think, put in you that you don't belong? I love the thinking of the two of you, Leah and Cydney, that you really have come to a point where you recognize your value, right? And you understand that there's some both and thinking going on. It's not either or. I can have and, right? Right? You get to define for yourself. And so we break out of that either or, it's both and. I love what you brought to this conversation, really lifting up that you own both of those. I can have impact and I can have the things, right? Absolutely. I get to decide. I love that.
Because why can't we? Who said we can't? Tell me who can't.
Tell me that person's name again, right?
Anyway, I don't care what y'all talking about. I'm about to do what I want to do at the end of the day. Okay, that's all I got to say.
And I want to add to just to be gentle with yourself throughout this journey. Like once you have this awareness, right? Like it doesn't matter what age you are, right? Better late than never. Like don't beat yourself up because you didn't have that awareness at 10 or 22 or 35. Like it's okay, right? Everything happens for a reason, and know that too, and stand on faith, or utilize positive self-talk, all of these things, but just don't beat yourself up because the world is beating us up on a daily basis. So why beat yourself up even more?
Absolutely. So Crystal, we have 5 minutes. Bring this thing on home. So very grateful that you are obedient to the vision. So very grateful that you're obedient to the assignment. We're grateful. Each one of us gets better every time we are in the presence of Crystal Gunn and her vision around the Amazing Woman Network. I love you beyond. Bring this thing home, my friend. Bring it on home.
So this conversation has been truly more than I thought it would be, right? And the comments and the in the chat are like really and truly off of the chart. You're doing something right when your mother says, right? When your mother tells you she can't wait to hear the conversation, you are doing something right. So I say thank you. The discussion was absolutely great. Cydney and Leah, you all are beyond, your wisdom is beyond your age. And I celebrate you in that, right? I celebrate you. And I can't wait to see where you all continue to go in life and how you continue to impact people. You ladies are awesome. You are brilliant and you are beautiful, and keep shining, because it definitely, definitely looks good on you. Michele, there is no person that I would rather do this with. I love you to the moon and beyond, and I am honored to share this space with you, because, oh my God, the years that we have and the things that we can never tell our daughters. To our viewers, whether you are watching this live or the replay, I pray something in this conversation resonated with you. I thank you to all of the people who posted in the chat and chimed in today. It has been absolutely amazing. I am Crystal Gunn. Thank you. And again, remember, in all things you do, make it absolutely positively amazing. You owe it to yourself and you owe it to the world, because the world needs your amazing as it was established at birth.
My name is Michele Harper. I am a Black woman and I own my amazing. Leah, come on in here. It is the mantra of all mantras.
Yeah.
Your name, I am a Black woman, nothing more powerful, and I own my amazing. Leave that in the room.
I am Leah Sylver. I am a Black woman and I own my amazing.
Yes.
Come
on, Cydney, close this thing out.
I am Cydney. I'm a Black woman, and I own every single day. I'm amazing. Okay.
Thank you, ladies, so much. I love each and every one of you, and good night.